Why, hello, fearless leader.
Here I am.
All right, you want to start
Oh,
with your updates?
oh boy, where do I even begin? Um, well, folks, it's for real. We are just shy of 2 weeks in operation, and an awful lot has gone on. Uh, you're beginning to see some of the principal acts and issues that are coming forward. Uh, there are just some wonderful things taking place, but it will cause a certain amount of consternation and questioning, and you'll be wondering, well, where are we now? Where do we stand? And what's what? And who's who? And I just want to kind of brush this out in real broad strokes for you. Uh, you are aware that our government was being represented by two very large uh, corporations. One, a commercial corporation in the business of providing governmental services. That was a British Crown corporation and still is. And a Roman municipal corporation doing business as the United States Incorporated that went bankrupt. Okay, so uh, the way that this is sorting out is that the Federation of States, which was the delegator of all the delegated powers that were extended um, through the federal constitutions to these subcontractors, has come back, as you know, and is in position of taking over the municipal corporation assets. At which point, then, we are also exercising a administrative function in terms of enforcing the Constitution of the United States of America on the organization headed up by Donald Trump. And to be fair, they were already moving toward compliance with their service contract. So the two things that we have in hand are restructuring the municipal government functions and bringing them back online to whatever extent is wise and practical, and keeping a firm grip on the USA Inc. to make sure that they continue to perform and comply with their service contract and its limitations. Now, those who've been around for a while know that there are a lot of issues that are material in nature, such as the banking. One of the things that has not been clear to a lot of people is that land jurisdiction assets are physical in nature. The assets of the land and soil are all physical. They're all substantive, okay? And they need to be in land jurisdiction banks so that you can participate in both national and international markets and venues, okay? But they need to be in land jurisdiction banks because otherwise they are under the law of the sea instead of the law of the land. And they are essentially commandeered by the British Crown and the British King, which is precisely what's caused so many of the problems that we've had over the past several decades and which we are addressing now. The land assets need to be in land jurisdiction banks, and that's why we created the global family banks and chartered them so that they would be here, would be ready, would be clean, and could receive and distribute the restitution coming back to the people of this country and to many other countries. So I wanted to make it clear to you that the reason that the Global Family Bank and indeed the entire family of Global Family Banks is created expressly so that the land jurisdiction assets can be secured in land jurisdiction banks and operated under land jurisdiction law, which is lawful, okay, as opposed to legal. And that's why we had to charter our own bank and set up this entire bank system, was so that in the end, you would be able to access your credit, your prepaid credit, and your gold and silver in a banking structure that is operating lawfully and that is secure and is not encumbered or entangled with the British Empire in any way. The British Empire, to my knowledge, has committed gross crimes, has acted in breach of trust and treaty, and has not a leg to stand on to continue to exist as a business organization. Read that the firm has been identified as a criminal syndicate. And that means that it is on its way out the door in terms of being accepted and respected and trusted in any corner of the world. It has been revealed as a covert colonialist effort and entity. Many of you will remember that colonialism was thoroughly discredited both before and after the Second World War, and it was universally condemned, and that is what caused the supposed breakup of the Commonwealth and the return of assets to the Commonwealth nations. However, the British and French and German and Belgian, especially Belgian, colonialists didn't give up. They just changed jurisdictions. And when they changed jurisdictions and began their entire colonialist operations again in the international jurisdiction of the sea, their oppression and coercion and their means of deceit to continue this colonialist activity was made worse in a certain way, because it was a matter of deceit and non-disclosure, secrecy, omission, and so it got into mind games, not simply obvious military or mercenary, as it were, attacks and actions. We are done with colonialism. We were done with colonialism in 1783, and we are still done with colonialism now. And it doesn't matter what jurisdiction it may hide in, it is still repugnant, it's still criminal, it's still just an excuse for strong arm theft, whether that theft is accomplished using an army or using a drone or using a jury and a judge. It's still the same filthy thing, and it is still criminal. So colonialism in all of its works and all of its ways is being finally hunted out of the world and put down. Now, they got away with continuing colonialism by switching jurisdictions once, and they were in the process of trying to switch jurisdictions so as to continue colonialism again, only this time they were in the process of changing it from the jurisdiction of the sea to the jurisdiction of the air. We caught them at it and brought a halt to that. So now they are without excuse. They practiced colonialism on the land, and they lost the wars, and they lost the moral struggle and everything else associated with that. And then they turned right around and began practicing colonialism again in the jurisdiction of the sea. And they would have, if we had allowed them to pull the ruse, they would have continued it in the jurisdiction of the air. So it's a very good thing that we have put an end to this cycle of colonialism, or as it is as it turns out, in the jurisdiction of the sea or the air, we call it corporate feudalism, but it's colonialism. And the colonialist powers are not represented by countries, but by corporations. But in any event, it's still colonialism, it's still evil, it's still criminal, it's still an excuse for armed theft. And so I just wanted you all to be kind of aware of these greater framework issues, why we need land jurisdiction banks and need to put our land jurisdiction assets in those banks instead of taking the easy way out and trying to use the conventional system that you've all been used to, because all of those banks that you are familiar with are maritime commercial banks, and they are all under the ownership and the control of the British. And we've had enough of that, haven't we? Anyway, we are in the process of outlining some initial endeavors and important changes and corrections in the government services we receive and the way these government corporations have structured their service mission and everything else. Because it's not really their part to determine what their mission is. It's been our part, our missing part, to give them direction and to inform our decisions to the public, okay? Because we have an obligation to each other to do what is right and to admit what the mission of the government is. I have repeatedly, exhaustively, verbally, and in writing, and in published writing, succinctly described the only reason to have a government. And the founding fathers agreed with me on this, and I with them. The only reason to have a government is to protect the people, the living people, and their assets. There's absolutely no other reason that we have a government. That's it. One sentence. To protect the living people and their assets. And if a government fails to do that, then either it's not acting as a government or it's not a legitimate government. So we now have definitions and parameters and a mission statement right in front of our faces. We also have a declaration of peace and a declaration of flag. There can be no reasonable doubt that this country, as a country, has been at peace since 1814. That is the last actual, factual, properly declared and recognized war that was ever fought by the people. Everything else since then has been a mercenary conflict, and it has been fought by mercenary interests, by commercial corporations, by people employed by commercial corporations, and by mercenaries choosing to work for commercial corporations, even if those poor soldiers and sailors had no idea that they were signing on as mercenaries. I have often said that if our boys had known that they were signing on as mercenaries, number one, most of them would never have signed up, and number two, they would have asked for a lot more money and benefits. So there you have it, folks. The mission of our government is and always has been to protect the people and their assets. The actions that you're going to see from the government, from the Federation of States, and from the Lakota Republic and all in any other nations here, it's going to be an effort to restore, to protect, and that's it. Restore and protect, and maybe I should add maintain, because once we get to a point where the country and the people are restored, we need to continue that protection on into the future. So part of what you are now seeing are certain acts of popular acts that are about clean air, clean water, and clean land and soil. These are being issued because there's already a mandate. There are already abundant public mandates and public laws that require clean air, clean water, clean land and soil. And they are not being enforced in any practical sense. And as a result, our air, our land, and our water has been polluted. And it has been left unrepaired after extraction activities. For example, vast forests have been cut down and have not been reforested. Gigantic pit mines have been opened like gashes in the earth, and pollutants have been allowed to leach into the aquifers and into the land and in soil. We've even had worse things happen. We've had an element, a rogue element, that has gone so far as to purposefully poison our air, our land, and our water. This cannot be tolerated because guess what? Allowing this to go on threatens your very life and the life of this planet. So if we're going to fulfill the mission of a true government, which is to protect the people and their assets, we have no choice but to take action to clean up the earth environment and to clean up the poisons which have been deliberately and criminally released into the environment. Whether that is, a scourge of wood ticks that are carrying Lyme's disease bioweapons, whether that is a cleanup to get rid of the chemtrail residues, the barium, strontium, aluminum hydroxide, graphene, and all the other things that have been spewed out of those planes. We have to do it. Okay, there's nobody else to do that. There's nobody else to force them to stop. There's nobody else to fund the cleanup and direct the different institutions and organizations and hired help within government to get the job done. So once again, the government is the organizing force behind the needful missions to protect and keep the assets and the people alive. I mean, what asset do you have that's more important than your life? I would argue that you have no other asset of greater value than your life. For without your life, you cannot enjoy, obtain, create, and do all of the other things that are assets, right? It's the primary asset. If we don't protect your life from poisons, if we don't protect the earth from pollution, then we're not doing our job. If we don't reclaim the earth and make the earth a habitable and healthy and clean environment, then we are not protecting the most important asset, which is life. So you've seen the Clean Air, Land and Soil and Water Acts, and that's fine. That's what's going on. That's where we're going. The military is being the Pentagon military is being redirected to turn its attention toward these issues. How best to clean up oil spills, how best to return the natural environment to a status of cleanliness, how to clean damaged aquifers, how to collect all of the plastics that have been dumped into the sea, how to change these waste products into something harmless, if not helpful. We have a lot of work before us just to make our environment healthy again. And by making our environment healthy, then we will make ourselves healthy, because we'll no longer be eating food that is so depleted in nutrients that it doesn't even count as food to our bodies. We will be healthier if we get rid of the over 55,000 manufactured chemicals that have never even been tested for their effect on life. These chemical companies have just willy-nilly created all of these compounds, some of which do not occur in nature, and they have distributed them for any purpose that they could find for them, without any consideration for what they were doing. This is a very scary situation. And forget the FDA being any help, because they were bought off long ago, and everybody who has sat in those chairs have been just cronies of some politician with some axe to grind and some sort of corporate donor ready to pay whatever was necessary to make sure that their compound was either approved by FDA or never came under FDA surveillance and scrutiny. So those things have to be addressed. Those things have to be straightened out. Those organizations and institutions have to be fundamentally changed. And once they're fundamentally changed and have their marching orders, then we have to develop means of making them accountable and making sure that no more of this pay-for-play stuff goes on. You see, we not only have certain missions that we have to accomplish and have to accomplish quickly if life on this planet is going to continue and not be a source of illness and misery instead of life as it was meant to be. We are forced to take action, and we are then forced to monitor and make sure that we don't have any more funny business, where we have institutions that are supposed to do one thing, but are doing the exact opposite. And you've all seen enough of that, where organizations that are supposedly devoted to promoting health are in fact promoting disease, where institutions that are supposedly promoting justice and ensuring justice for all are in fact promoting injustice and theft of assets. So, everything has been upside down, everything has been underwater, everything has been a matter of the tail wagging the dog, the people's voices not being heard, the people's interests not being served, and certainly the people have not had protection. The people have been under a multi-generational attack by their own government and the bureaucracies that they trusted. And so the truth of the matter is that it wasn't your own government doing this. It was a foreign government that was being exercised by foreign commercial corporations and foreign municipal corporations working in tandem to defraud and denigrate and steal from you. So it should be a great bit of news, and you should all be very happy that your government has arrived on the scene, and the Federation of States took up its mantle and its responsibility to oversee the federal subcontractors. And a great many people worldwide have helped us to do that. And now you're beginning to see the practical real-world effect of having those subcontractors functioning as they should under competent direction. And that competent direction is 100% to protect you and your assets. So that going forward, you will be able to trust your government again, because your government will be working for you and for your benefit and for care that is meaningful in your lives. One of the cares that we can provide and are providing that we're going forward with is to provide you a safe landing place for your assets that are being returned to you. Now, obviously, your assets are being returned because of other actions that we've already taken in the years prior to this. Your assets are being returned because we've proven that your assets were, number one, commandeered, that you were misrepresented, that public trusts were created in your name, and those public trusts were pillaged and plundered, that you were charged for taxation and mortgages and property taxes that you didn't owe, that your position as the priority and preferential creditors was not recognized, and that you were the victims of a monetary system that was never approved, number one, and number two, was nothing but a money mill that was not keeping any proper accounting of anything. It was not keeping proper accounting of the actual debt of the perpetrators. It was not keeping any accounting of the lawful national credit accumulating for your benefit. So all of these things are sort of on our plate, and we are addressing them. We have been addressing them for a number of years. And I don't want anyone to think that, oh, you just shot up out of nowhere and, came up like, a mushroom circle in the spring. No, this has been underway since 1999, actively, progressively, year after year. And the bank system that we chartered, the Global Family Bank system, has been under development since 2007. So this is not something that just kind of sprang up overnight. This is something that has been worked at and has been the focus of a great deal of volunteer work and effort over the past 25 years. And you are now at the receiving end as the beneficiaries of all of this diligence and care that your actual government put in. So it's all good news for you. It's bad news for the British Crown, in part because the British Crown facilitated so much of this colonialist activity, and because the British Empire was essentially an illegal, deceptive organization from the beginning. People who have read our articles have seen that England is a kingdom, Scotland is a kingdom, Ireland is a republic. These are our national governments. But we have been duped by the thing calling itself Great Britain, which was formed following the English Civil War, and which is actually a commercial company. Great Britain is a company. The United Kingdom, the UK, is a corporation. Okay? They're not countries. We talk about them as if they were somehow forming a united country, but no, that's not even possible. They're not countries, they're business concerns. And the people of Britain have long ago been forgotten and used and preyed upon and lied to and left adrift without a paddle. And that becomes more understandable when you realize that for the past 1,000 years, Britain has been in the thrall of continental European powers, both French and German. There hasn't been an actual English government in 1,000 years. And the situation in Scotland isn't much better. And we all know that Ireland has fought long and hard to have its nation set apart and clean and clear of all of that conundrum. So the situation in England, even at the time of our separation from England, our decided separation from England, was deplorable. And they were being pillaged and plundered and used and abused and preyed upon by the same criminal banking and commercial interests that have continued on with their rampage and repeated their sins until we come to the present day. If you go back and you compare what happened in England at the time of the English Civil War, and you compare what happened here in the United States after and during the quote-unquote American Civil War, you'll find that they were both illegal mercenary conflicts and that they followed the exact same playbook. So what was done to England and Scotland in 1694 was done here in America in 1860, and it was then done in Australia in 1908. And every country has gone through this same business of the colonialist empire being defined as a government by a business, either a actual company or a corporation that has been incorporated by foreign interests. So it's time for people to wake up. I hope that you're all happy and beginning to feel positive about the changes that have come. You'll be seeing more changes. But this is what I want you to focus on. Even though all stress is all changes are stressful, okay? And I understand that. We all understand that. Even good stress, a marriage, a new baby, a new job, it's all stressful. It's good stress, but it's stressful. And you're going to be undergoing some good stress here, where you see things that were wrong being made right, where you see money and ownership interests being returned to you and to your control, where you see corrupt courts being closed down and actual justice and restitution being served. You know, these are going to fill your hearts with gladness, and at the same time, it may leave you a little bit shell-shocked and uncertain about what's going on and how it's being done and who's doing it and those sorts of concerns. You may also feel that things are moving too fast and you're having a hard time keeping up. Well, some of these actions have been needed for decades, and we're finally in a position where we can make things happen. So that accounts for some of the lickety-split, blow-by-blow nature of what you're seeing. And yes, it's true. I had the district courts on my list of things to be abolished ever since I first learned about the carpetbagger courts and how they were established in the southern states using fictional military districts operating extraterritorially to oppress the people of the southern states, who were, of course, not consciously a part of the entire commercial conflict. They basically came in and blamed the people of the southern states in a wholesale fashion and illegally confiscated vast amounts of property and commodities and inflicted very grievous taxes and penalties and all sorts of nonsense to repay the British Crown for the expense that the Northern Coalition suffered during the prosecution of their illegal mercenary conflict. Anyway, these district courts should never have been operating in the states of the Union, and it's been on the list to get rid of them for a long, long time. It's been on the list to make them exonerate cases that they prosecuted improperly and under false legal presumptions and false claims in commerce. And so it's a little bit ironic that, yes, my house was taken from me and I was evicted using the same exact mill of injustice as the district courts have always been for the last 150 years. And I'm sure it did not occur to them that I would be the one shutting their doors and calling them out for their evil and criminal acts. But so it is. And that is in keeping with what I heard back to me, that not only would I get my house back, but I would get back all of the houses that had been stolen from everybody. So rejoice, people. The end of an era of criminality, deceit, delusion, breach of trust, and murder and theft and violence and all sorts of evil is coming to an end. And you've lived long enough to see it. Now, if you haven't read the Proclamation of Restoration and the Joint Proclamation from Chief Fast Horse, be sure and read them. Read the detail. Understand the initial movements that are taking place. It doesn't matter that Chief Fast Horse misspelled my name. Spelling is not his strong suit. But it doesn't matter because his intention is clear and it is absolutely set in cement that I am the person that he is referring to. Okay? We are hoping that within the next 2 weeks, the accounts will be straightened out and everything will be prepared so that you can begin enjoying your restitution. And we are fast on the track to be returning all of your land titles and land descriptions to you. And we'll be taking up the work of the long defunct Federal Republic. We'll be actually beginning to do things like operate the US Mint to produce coinage and dealing with those sorts of things as we go. So I'm sure you have about 20 zillion questions. And Shannon, you have my permission to hit me with them for an hour.
Okie dokie. In the introducing the American Federation dollar press release, you link to your 2/9/25 blog. It mentions the gold was audited. Who audited the gold, and how can the results of the audit be viewed or obtained? Where is it stored, and how secure is the storage paid for? How is the secure storage paid for?
Well, there is a trust involved where these deposits were made on behalf of our government or our people, and those records are available. So most of the gold that is owed to our government it has been audited since, say, 1855. Okay, so it's been in storage this entire time. And the storage fees are paid out of the interest accumulating. So there's interest that's owed by the bank that's using these stored assets as a basis for its own activities, you see. And so there are no storage fees owed. And as for being secure, they're as secure as they've been since they were deposited. There's no guarantees in this world, but if they've been under deposit with a bank for 165 years, I think that that's probably as secure as we could ask for. We do our best as fiduciaries to make sure that we're fed good information, and that that's true information, and then we apply that information and do all of the things that a prudent person would do. And so when the banks initially said that we owed them money for storage fees, we said, well, you owe us money for interest. That cut that entire conversation really short. One of the nice things about gold is that you can pack metric tons of gold into a fairly short, small space because gold is so heavy. But we do have significant gold resources already recovered and recouped. We do have significant silver resources already recovered and recouped. It is not that we can't issue the national credit simply by making a reasonable estimate, kind of lowballing it, and beginning to issue national credit to erase national debts. So there are a lot of things that we can very justifiably, lawfully, and legally do. And so we have concentrated on getting the low-hanging fruit organized and recovered, and then going after the historical, quote-unquote, legacy trusts and historical trusts that the World Bank had purloined, for lack of a better word. And so we're advancing along all those lines. And yes, our resources, such as they are sufficient to run our government and are sufficient to pay restitution to our people. And we are, of course, looking for additional restitution from those that are responsible for this situation. And that does include the members of the royal family. There are a lot of other lesser known people that have benefited grossly. We're not talking about, even $1 million or $2, we're talking about hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of dollars that these individuals have sopped up in their private capacity that they have no possible valid claim to. One of the examples that has become quite a cause célèbre is Prince Philip receiving $950 trillion in life force value insurance annuities. 950 trillion. This just gives you an inkling, some little suspect of just how much money and how much credit has been rat-holed by the rats. And the job that it is to do the sorts of forensic audits and the deep digging into banking issues that this is going to require to recover, well, let's hope, a very substantial portion of all that has been embezzled and conscripted and illegally confiscated and otherwise created by means of fraud or non-disclosure.
Okay, next. So in Colorado, we're still being hit with chemtrails. Is there some way we can lean these people? And if so, how do we find them? It is constantly affecting my respiratory system, and I am sick of it.
Well, as of 2 days ago, the Clean Air Restoration Act hit the table. I believe that the only planes that will be flying any of those missions will be perhaps some rogue subcontractors of subcontractors of subcontractors who don't get the message right away. But I believe that all of that was subcontracted out through NGOs and through certain military contracts. And certainly the military contracts have been pulled. And the other subcontractors that were paid to do this, their financial incentives will be cut also because, President Trump is coming from one side and we're coming from the other, and it all sort of meets in the middle to put an end to these harmful programs like the chemtrail spraying. I know that doesn't give you any immediate help, but it tells you that there is soon an endpoint. And as far as any government involvement of government subcontractors, that's already cut.
Well, as are many people, I'm excited about the potential of shutting down the district/administrative courts and the unlawful judgments from the last 10 years being exonerated. My question is, do we have to contact the courts to remind them that we are Americans and tell them this, and they still proceed illegally and unlawfully without jurisdiction? voiding the proceeding and judgment.
I don't think you quite understand. We're shutting those courts down. The only function they have now is to go back over the paperwork, admit that they were wrong, and provide both a restitution order and actual payment of fines and fees that are owed to you. These courts are being shut down, and so is the IRS. The only function that the municipal IRS still has is to do the same kind of work, go back and return money, return property, and exonerate false claims that have slandered the good names of good people who were misidentified as tax cheats and slandered in their communities. That is the only job of the IRS anymore, is to make restitution, to exonerate these false cases, and to provide restitution and return of confiscated property and credit and money that these institutions have embezzled and racketeered out of the American people.
Okay, last Monday, Anna made a call for money to the Global Safety Vault, so Tuesday morning I wired money to the vault. Both emails used to communicate with Global are undeliverable. He gives both emails. This is the sixth wire I've made to the vault, and the first time I could not follow up with the emails required. Is everything okay with the vault?
Well, he may have shut it down. I haven't kept up with that. The vault is, as you know, a program that was put in place as an opportunity to recoup the value of your money that's been lost since 1913. And so you would get a considerable amount back for every $1 FRN that you put in the vault. If it's honored at a 1-to-1 correspondence as of today, you would get something like $330 worth of gold. And that was to serve as a recompense for people that they could choose, and they could have some motive force on and determine for themselves as part of self-governance. But we also knew that we couldn't allow that to go on forever, because if we did, there would be no way to settle the national debts. And so the vault was offered up until the point where the actual bank comes online. And so I know that Hunter is in the very last stages of being literally public and online. And that means that he may have shut down the bank a day or 2 or 3 or however many early, simply because they've gotten to that point. I will check with him. I will try to get an update article out and let everybody know.
Okay. Please explain why there are restrictions being put on who can get help with the MedBed technology and for which conditions. Who is imposing these requirements? And are we not all made sick and injured by their system? Are we not all entitled to having our health restored after their interference?
Well, here's that wonderful little word, entitled. That's a British word, and it implies the existence of elite. And, well, we don't have elite in this country. We just have people, and we consider the people to be important individually. From that standpoint, a woman who wants to change her appearance by going into a med bed facility and turning her hair to dark brown is of lesser merit and consideration in the competition for these resources than a man who lost his arm in Afghanistan as a result of a roadside bombing. I'm sorry, we're not putting up with any whining or BS. There is going to be a very reasonable, very straightforward ranking of medical conditions according to how severe the medical condition is and whether or not you're a veteran. Period. Now, the military developed this technology. Just one second, I have to take this call.
All right. While Anna's taking this call, just a reminder, any questions that you come up with, feel free to email me at the email listed on the site with your questions, and that way I can get them forward and ask Anna. Welcome back, Anna.
Okay, about med beds. Yes, 8 million have been produced, and for the most part, they've been distributed worldwide. Virtually every country has received med beds, one way or another. There are just a very few exceptions. The problem is training up enough people to use these. And so now the focus is on training the technicians and also training the people that are the patients, because in order to get the maximum effect, the real health benefit, you need to learn how to relax. And most of us aren't real good at relaxing. Okay. So there's a kind of a protocol of how to relax, how to use deep breathing exercises, and how to work with yourself to relax so that when you're in the med bed, you can relax sufficiently and you can actually benefit from the healing frequencies that are being employed. Now, between teaching people how to relax enough and between getting enough trained medical technologists who can reliably operate these things, there is I'll call it a spotty coverage in terms of how many med beds are available to the public and how many are available to the military and so on. So expect that there will be some problems initially getting everybody to a med bed, and expect that the ones who get the first priorities are going to be those who are really truly sick, those that are on the verge of death, who need the help immediately and desperately, are going to go first. And those who are veterans who are on the verge of death are going to go first. Okay, so that's going to create a initial kind of clump of demand against limited supply. It's basically what happens whenever you introduce a new technology. But anyway, there'll be this large demand immediately. There'll be a sort of triage process by which doctors look at the cases and say, well, this one is really desperate, this one is not. This guy can have this kind of therapy and that will keep him alive for another, whatever. And they'll be able to triage this out and figure out who needs to go first and second and third and fourth and all the way down the line. Also keep in consideration that out of those 8 million med beds, they are not all primary purpose med beds. The med beds come in 3 different kinds. They are set up so that one does analysis of your condition, does the diagnostics. The next version actually does the restoration work and triggers your self-healing mechanisms and gets your cellular defenses activated and actually does the primary work of, say, correcting diabetes or curing bone cancer or these other things that are they're major diseases that are killing people every day, but they're correctable using this technology. And then above and beyond that, which is more in the sense of diagnostics and medical treatment for a health problem, there is the restorative machines that actually restore things like missing limbs, missing nerves in the spinal column, so that people who've been paralyzed for years can walk again. And so these are three different kinds of med beds. Not everybody needs restorative therapy. Virtually everyone needs diagnostics at one point or another, and most of us are going to need some restorative care. But for those of us who are healthy, or at least healthy enough, we're going to step back and let those who are truly sick go first. And there is a ranking. I mean, the day will come when, if you want a new look, you can go to a restorative med bed and, adjust things about your appearance that you want to change. But that kind of cosmetic use of the med bed is not going to happen for a long time, because there are going to be other people that have actual need in order to restore their functioning as living beings, that are going to come in there and get first in line status on those things too. And it will be humane, it will be sensible, it will be something that everybody can look at and go, yeah, somebody who lost their arm at the elbow and can't work as a result at his chosen profession deserves to get his arm back and his life back. Okay. And we're all going to look at that and we're going to go, yeah, right. He comes ahead of somebody who wants to change their hair color. And that's, just the way it's going to be. And I hope everybody's happy with that. We should be happy that this technology has been developed and that, people will no longer have to suffer the way they've suffered with illnesses that are treatable.
Okay, the next magical question. Question, has anything been revealed since the fingerprinting of the mini Trumps began?
Well, we haven't found the real Trump. There are all sorts of rumors and speculations, and the most likely speculations, in my opinion, are that number one, Donald Trump died years ago, and one way or another he was represented, okay, so that he appeared to be alive by a body double or two, or, and this is actually, in my opinion, the more likely explanation, is that he became such a valuable asset that he was protected in a secured, unknown, undisclosed location. And he was then being represented by up to 9 different body doubles, actors who are out and about, meeting and greeting, shaking hands, giving speeches, and pretending to be Donald Trump. But no, we don't know where the real one is or if he's still alive, but we do know that so far nobody's had the right fingerprints.
Okay, next question. We got another question. Medbeds seem to be the hot topic tonight. What effect will medbeds have on mental illness, autism, and severely mentally handicapped men and women?
Well, medbeds can change the biology. They can change the chemistry. They can tweak a lot of things that are internal chemical balances that contribute to mental illnesses. For example, bipolar syndrome is linked to diabetes and to sugar metabolism problems. Schizophrenia is, it's related to brain chemistry. So there are things like that that can be changed by the med beds. But now, in terms of true quote unquote mental illness, you have to understand, is largely theoretical. There are some diseases that have known biological causes. Like I just mentioned, schizophrenia. We know that that's caused by a brain chemistry imbalance. But there are a lot of things that are classed as mental illnesses that have no known biological or genetic cause. So they may not be treatable. I mean, for example, something like Down syndrome. We know what causes Down syndrome. All right. It's a genetic problem. It can be fixed, in theory, by a combination of allopathic and frequency medicine. But we don't know what causes certain other things that rank as illnesses. So, in answer to your question, some mental illnesses will go away as a result of treatment by the med beds or combined treatment, but some others may remain something that we just don't know the cause of and can't treat. For example, we don't know yet why some people are born without a conscience. About 5% of the total population of the earth is born without a conscience. They have no internal understanding of right or wrong. They have no internal empathy for other people. They literally can't put on the other guy's moccasins and try to view life from his perspective. So we don't know what causes that. We don't know if it's a genetic defect. We don't know if it's a chemical imbalance or if it's an energetic issue. We just don't know.
Okay. All right. For our next question, is it safe to presume a trustee's sale of real estate of my land and home is fraudulent and unlawful, and any eviction proceedings will also be deemed fraudulent and unlawful, that attempts to evict will not be enforced by the county sheriff's department? Are there any or what steps do I need to take to ensure that I remain in my home? And wax eloquent, I've got to go change a diaper.
Okay. Well, maybe you should come back and read the comments in the playback. County sheriff's sales are being directed by county courts. They're not immediately affected by the shutdown of the district courts. Okay. They're at a different level and they're operating, at least ostensibly, in a different jurisdiction. But they are still incorporated counties and they are still operating under the same presumptions. And so we'll be going after them next. Now, the issue that you have to bring forward to them is that you could not possibly owe the county any taxes on your land and home when they, in fact, owe you money. This is always the quid pro quo problem that they have, is that they owe you a tremendous amount of money that they haven't paid. And you can demonstrate exactly how that accrued. So the problem for them is that they're like your kid brother who you owe $10 to, and he already owes you $100, but he's after you hammer and tongs for his $10. And you have to turn around and say, yeah, but you already owe me $100, so I'm exercising my right to a debt swap here. and just put it to them like that. Another thing that comes readily to mind is that all these counties are incorporated, and as such, they have no jurisdiction related to living people and physical assets. All they really control are non-physical assets that they created in the form of land descriptions and house numbers and that sort of thing, intellectual property rights related to systems that they created describing your property. And that has no validity. Now, they won't want to hear it, but that's the truth. And, we're in the process of returning municipal and territorial titles that were taken on your property. The counties are operating in a similar fashion as incorporated franchises of the state organizations. So they're actually covered under the fold over of the district courts too, because they're franchises of the district courts. And that's something you can also bring to the judge's attention. Okay, you're operating a county of court that is a franchise of the third judicial district, right? He'll be sitting there going, well, then you don't have any right to address me. I'm not a British subject. I'm not a citizen of the United States. And you don't have a contract to represent me. You have no signed, sealed, and delivered contract to use my name granted by me as an adult. So just take your presumed to exist public trust interest and toddle on down the road. Or produce the said wet ink contract signed by me, allowing you to create a public trust in my name and plunder it. That should set him up for the weekend.
Well, definitely have them on their toes. Next question is,
start being on their toes.
Can we submit Anna's new proclamation to attorneys and judges for current civil court cases? And do we have to attend the hearing?
Yeah, you can do that. You can hit him with the proclamation. The word of this is trickling down pretty darn fast, and it will gather speed. Now, of course, the territorial judges that are operating as franchisees of the USA Inc. are not affected in those positions, but they are still required to abide by their responsibility under the Constitution of the United States of America to protect you. And if they don't, then they are guilty of violation of Articles 4, 5, and 6. Remember that you do not have to testify or incriminate yourself in any manner, and that can also mean that you are not responsible for producing any information that would be incriminating for a corporation that was named after you. So yes, you can take the 5th if you want to, but I basically think that the stronger suit and the stronger claim is to the supremacy clause that is written into the Constitution of the United States of America, and the Fourth Amendment, which then lists all of the things that they are supposed to be protecting you against, including crimes of personage. You might just want to pull that and, take out your marking pen and go. We're going to be starting a process by which we bring in the state governors and their top officials, their top bureaucrats, and the state chief justices, and basically just lay down the law for them. Explain how this has happened, explain who we are, explain the source of our authority, and basically enforce. So It takes time to do that, and we're trying to figure out how best to do that. But it's coming. And even if they do evict you, it won't stand against you for long.
Okay. Anna, do you think the real Trump is at Cheyenne Mountain? And if you do, are you sending the notice/correspondence to him there? Also, the insurance card, can it be used for a minor in the household as well?
Boy, I, the question of minors has been kind of left in limbo except for the identity cards. And I do believe that the assumption has been that the parent would use their health cards, either one or both of the parents or the guardians of a minor child would be using their health cards on behalf of the child. And there's really no reason why you couldn't or wouldn't do that, because your own health card can be expanded according to your needs. If you don't have enough in your healthcare balance, that can be amended upward to take care of exceptional costs, catastrophic illnesses, and that sort of thing. So this has not been decided. There's no official here on this topic yet, but I would assume that parents, grandparents, and other family members can share health care coverage with minor children. It's something I'll investigate and try to get a hard and fast answer together here in the next week or so.
Okay. Hello, Anna. I've been trying to log into the Federation Trade site where I have my business info/ad, etc. However, it will not let me in, nor will it recognize my email saying it doesn't exist. Yet my business and my ads are up there. Also, when I go to help section, it says the section is not available. I've been wanting to update things to be ready for when we have trade AFDs ready to do business. Any thoughts on what might be going on with the Federation Trade site?
The most common problem is that a person's email has changed or their address has changed and it needs to be updated. That's the most common thing. There are some possible other, technical things. I know that they've been working on the vendor side and the vendor sites to prepare for opening up the vendor accounts first. So they may just be undergoing they're working on it, so they're closed down for now. I can ask. But I know that that is coming and it is soon. So if you want to follow up, send me an email with a subject line vendor. And when I know, I'll make sure and get you an answer specifically.
Okay, next question. Do new people who have status corrected still need to notify the territorial and state employees? And if so, which ones?
Well, it depends on which ones you're working with. If you've got an issue where you were having to deal with the state health services division, okay, then you would notify them. If you have something where you're concerned about your safety, you notify public safety. The responsibility for notifying all of the different departments and agencies lies with the U.S. Secretary of State. So if I were you, I would just send a notification of change of status. Dear Mr. Rubio, or Dear Secretary Rubio, my wife and I have reclaimed and revested our birthright political status. and have returned to the land and soil jurisdiction of this country, and thank you very much. It's then up to him and his office, it's their responsibility, literally, to fully inform all of their employees from stem to stern that this is your political status. And you're really not obligated to notify all these other yahoos because they have an internal system where they can just list your name and address and that sort of thing. And it goes all the way down to the county level.
Okie dokie. Next one. When buying a gun, can you advise how we should fill out the background check form in regards to citizenship questions?
I wouldn't even go there. I'd just go to a gun show and buy a gun privately. I mean, they go completely, utterly berserk, and firearms, even though technically rifles and pistols are not firearms within the meaning and intent of the law there and the treaty obligations. You know, the grunts on the ground go completely apeshit, batshit crazy about people that are, you know, buying guns who are not U.S.C citizens. And so you're just better to avoid all that, get your state national credentials, get your credential card, and buy a gun privately at a gun show, where not from a federally connected dealer. That's what I would do.
That's my general method too. Could Anna summarize on how this restoration will develop? A national proclamation on public broadcasting, possibly? When will the courts start moving back to DC?
Well, you'll probably hear from Chief Fasthorse first. He's very proud of himself because he carried the ball over the end line. He was quite magnificent, and he deserves lots of applause. But the proclamation itself is binding, and so you'll start seeing the withdrawal of the district courts and their shuttering for the exoneration process, and that should be happening this week. They don't really have any leg to stand on. District courts are supposed to be in the District of Columbia. They're not supposed to be out here in the states of the Union. And they should not be addressing Americans in any under any circumstance. So their functions have been, at best, duplicitous and at worst criminal throughout their lifetime and their tenure here. So those military districts called judicial districts are being rolled up. And so I'm sure that the exact timeline of how this gets done and when will vary across the states, but it's a requirement for them to observe, and they will have to shut down those courts and begin the exoneration process ASAP.
Okay, next question. Would it be a wise plan to not have access to our GFB funds for free use other than commerce with vendors until 2026 is fully underway? When is it likely we may have access?
Well, I would say that as soon as the dashboard is interactive and you can start transacting, you should do so. And the very first thing you should do is order your cards and get your app set up so that you can make purchases from stores that use the QRC code system. As for timing, it could come anytime. I mean, it is, as far as we're concerned, our side of the system is complete. I'm being told that the other side of the system is solved too. And so I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the details of access into the current bank system to be resolved.
Okay. Are there any countries that is not part of the birth certificate scam and any country not under the British boots?
Oh, yeah, there are a lot of them, or there were a lot of them. One of them is Iran, North Korea. You know, the people that they're always trying to get us up in arms to go fight. Because actually, what they want to do is go take over those countries and run them as colonies also. And they want to plunder their artifacts and steal their resources, their gold and their oil and whatever else they may have. Um, but now that the military realizes that it's being used as a cheap mercenary force, and the National Guard realizes that the nation they're supposed to be serving is their own state population, the people of their State of the Union, things are not going so well for the rats. So yes, there are countries that do not have and have never had the Social Security or sin taxes or any of that. Russia does not have it. But a great many nations either have it or some form of it as a result of the British Raj, too often misrepresented by Americans, uh, going in and kicking butt and offering payola and buying off individuals and threatening individuals so that they're able to set up their system in many countries and hardly pay any price for it at all. They just insinuate themselves. It's a fascinating process. If you really want to look at it, look at what happened in Australia between 1908 and 1910 and the quote unquote arrival of the Great White Fleet. Um, that is most instructive.
Any update on the gold situation in the Philippines, such as how does is that process going?
Well, the government of the Philippines presented me with numerous pieces of papers that have been appear to be signed by Ferdinand Marcos. Now, what is at issue is what did Ferdinand Marcos control for himself, and what did he control as a professional under hire? And I guess the best way to illustrate this is the example of an artist. An artist may create art of his own volition and out of his own um, creativity, right? And that art then belongs to him. He signs it. It's his. It's under his private copyright. But the very same artist might be approached by someone who, say, wants them to paint a painting on commission for hire, for use as artwork for a product, a label on a product, for example. Say that you want a scene of thus and so, you want a girl enjoying a cup of tea, to put on a tea box. Well, you can hire an artist to produce such an artwork for hire, in which case he then also sells you the copyright at the same time as you have your for hire agreement. So it's a similar thing where you have work that is your own, that belongs to nobody else, wasn't commissioned by anyone else, and has no restriction on its copyright. And then you have things that you've done for hire. And so we have done things for hire, and other countries have done things for hire. And those are in a different category from those things that you just innately own free and clear for yourself that you created. Does that make sense?
Will taxes eventually go away for all, such as school teachers and any jobs related with the education system?
Emphatically, yes. We're not going through all of the expense, burden, uh, anguish, legal enforcement actions, and all the rest of the BS that goes on with taxes. We don't need taxes. We have more than enough money to run this country for 1,000 years without taxes. Okay, so taxes are definitely off the table. Now, I don't know how everybody feels about that, but if you really look at it and study it, you will shortly realize that the only real purpose of taxation is coercive. You know, it's just a coercive tool to make people live in fear and do what you want them to do under threat. And so, from that standpoint, it's criminal. And from the standpoint of need, it's not needed. And from the standpoint of being any kind of a valid service, it's not. So what's it doing? How is it protecting the people and their assets? All it's doing is generating billions and billions and billions of dollars of cost every year that is being paid out to various different kinds of tax preparation services and tax accountants and tax lawyers, and huge amounts of money is being and effort, time is being sucked into tax court claims and preparation of volumes of documents and all sorts of stuff that is just waste. So we're actually not gaining anything by collecting taxes. The only thing that the taxes do, besides scaring people half out of their mind, is they provide a means of coercion, which has been employed against people. And it also acts as a safety valve on the fiat currency, because when you take funds out of circulation, that is an anti-inflation step. So they have tried to use collection of taxation as a means of reducing the amount of currency in circulation and thereby using it to damp down inflation. So coercion and damping down inflation are the only two really valid reasons that we have a federal income tax. And neither one of those reasons are appropriate to our mission, which is what? To protect the people and their assets. How are we protecting the people and their assets when we're harassing them, charging them, misrepresenting what the charges are and what they do? Yeah, I could go on. So we are definitely not looking at preserving any power of taxation, nor any taxes per se.
Okay. Will our prosperity card work at a standard ATM if we need FRNs for any specific reason?
Well, hopefully you're not going to use FRNs very long into the future. But if you are in need of any kind of ATM funds in the short term, it'll be a while before we replace the bills, the cash in your pocket with new bills of, a specific certificate kind of money. And that's just simply because we've got too darn much to do. The amount of different tweaks and reforms and changes and all of it is going to take so much time and attention. And we're going to be working on the issuance of our beautiful new Buffalo currency. You've seen it. You've seen pictures of it. But the actual production in quantities sufficient to meet the cash needs is just not possible in a short term. So you'll continue to have the Federal Reserve notes in circulation for a while longer, while we're booting up and getting the American Federation cash ready.
Okay, the next question. How do we find out where the med beds are located so we can get on the list?
Well, again, that was handled by the military. Generally speaking, you can expect that they will be found in facilities where you've got a VA medical center. Obviously, that's one place. You've got rehabilitation hospitals that are catering to people who are amputees or have significant um, rehabilitation needs as a result of physical injuries. Then you will find them there. Um, most of the large medical centers have them, and some private clinics, but again, mostly private clinics are dealing with restoration cases. People that need a new knee, okay? And this is being used as an alternative to knee replacement surgery, things of that sort. And so I don't have a list of exactly where all of these med beds are, what facilities have them, what facilities don't. I'm sure that's available somewhere at this point, but it's in the military miasma, the vast, sprawling, incomprehensible military bureaucracy. And although I have the name of a general who was, is the person responsible for doing the distribution of the technology, I have not been able to get in contact with him yet.
Did the Vatican gold for the baby descent trust go into our land/soil jurisdiction banks?
Not yet. Mr. Trump glommed onto that as the representative, even before the nature and identity of the actual claimant had been established. This was done on presumption. The Vatican Bank was ready to get rid of the gold, and so having made that decision, they apparently contacted Mr. Trump in his capacity as the commander in chief, and they then loaded up the gold on board military planes and flew it back to the United States, where they have, warehoused it under guard and kept it for the last, I think, 4 years. So that's one of the things that is being discussed, and Mr. Trump is being asked to come clean on it and return it to the land jurisdiction because it's a land jurisdiction asset and it should be in a land jurisdiction bank or banks.
When can we look for the finding and international declaration to be posted?
The finding. I'm kind of drawing a blank on that language.
Yeah, me too.
The orders from the International Court of Justice should be
Okay,
available.
I just got a referendum, if you will, about their wording. Where can we find the International Proclamation of Restoration?
Well, that'll be available at the TASA website and from Paul Stramer's website too. So you can just go on there and look for it among the recent articles. It's called Proclamation of Restoration. And so that should be easy to find.
Okie dokie. What about autoimmune disease? Would the med beds work on that?
Well, apparently so, because it's being used to treat autism and fibromyalgia. And both of those are supposedly autoimmune issues.
Is there a way for experienced health professionals to apply to be trained to assist with the MedBed rollout and subsequent operation? Thank you.
Well, again, we need to find out where the medical centers are located that have the med beds. And then, yes, very definitely, they are looking for qualified people to train to use the med beds. And I'm sure that they would welcome having anyone qualified step forward.
Hi, when is the estimated date that each ASN's GFG account will be active for usage?
Like I say, it could be any day now. Our side of it is complete. We're ready. All we need to do is create a portal, what I call a traffic circle, so that different kinds of assets coming in from the existing bank service can be properly routed within the global family bank system.
Okay. Ask Anna to speak a word on how one can protect our land and home from fraudulent reconveyance without having to interface with the fraudulent county land and deeds office that is a part of the problem, as they promote and are complicit in allowing the British esquires to vouch for such nonsense. Example, dragging our elders while terminal and incapacitated into law offices and deed offices to steal land deeds with attorney issued POAs, joint tenancy, with survivorship, knowing that one's intentions were never this. Evidenced by when a father wishes land and property to pass to the sole heir and lets this be known clearly during the final days of life and is then defrauded.
Well, every case is different. I think that you could certainly challenge any such claim because your father was obviously not entirely 100% himself when he signed the documents. And when you're dealing with an elderly person who has any signs of physical or mental illness, it's pretty easy to overturn wills and other things that appear to be signed under duress, benefiting an entity or a person who is not closely connected with that, with the person who made the arrangement. So I would challenge any supposed grant of property that was made by your father on the grounds of his ill health and deteriorating mental state. Yo,
Insurance
Shannon,
company, I'm here. I'm
we're
trying to
all,
read this one.
we
We're
got
not
6
quite
minutes.
6 minutes. Insurance companies that allow all kinds of treatment for all and everyone at prices to not gain. Not sure. Oh, can we start insurance companies that allow all kinds of treatment for everyone at prices that are not to a gain?
Well, I think that we need to go back to a nonprofit medical sector. You see, we lost that during the Nixon administration, and that's when our healthcare went down the toilet. Suddenly, all of these healthcare institutes and medical centers and doctors and everybody was clawing for the money, clawing for the money. And that's when our healthcare went down. It did not go up after that. It went straight down. It's been in constant decline ever since it became a for-profit sector. So we can use that as more or less proof of the fact that it was a mistake to make medicine a for-profit economic sector. It was always nonprofit. And so we probably, one of the things that needs to be done is to make it a nonprofit sector again. Now, you won't be going through the whole thing that you've been going through with Medicare, for example. You won't have this whole business of, you come into the hospital, you require something like, say you're dehydrated and they have to put you in a bed and put an IV on you and bring your hydration levels back up to normal. That's entirely normal procedure for elderly people that allow themselves to get dehydrated one way or another. Okay, so then what happens? The bill for this goes into Medicare. And Medicare looks at it and they've got a list of about 4,200 different things they have to check off before they can say, yes, we will pay this. No, we won't pay it. Or we'll pay 50% of it, or we'll pay 60% of it, or 10% of it, or whatever. And then they send that back to the hospital, where the hospital has to go through the whole business of then saying, oh, well, you have a bill remaining of 30% of this procedure that was performed on such and such a date and such a time. Okay. All of that work, all that extra bureaucratic pencil pushing, the analysis of something that should be as simple as saying, okay, well, they're elderly and they needed rehydration, check, paid for. It gets spun off into all this bureaucratic extra work and record keeping and all of that, right? And then at the end of the day, you get a letter in the mail saying that you owe this much, right? We're not going to do that. Again, this is a waste, a huge waste, a huge burden on our financial system and on us individually. It is a gigantic source of corruption. It's a gigantic source of waste. And in tandem with making healthcare a nonprofit activity, we have the healthcare cards. Okay, so the healthcare cards can be used to pay any kind of medical bill directly. And you're not limited to what some officer or office in DC thinks is appropriate treatment or not. If you think that you have sleep apnea based on discussions with your family and friends and your whatever medical care that you normally have, and you decide to be analyzed for sleep apnea at a sleep clinic, you don't have to go through a big battle with Medicare to pay for this. You can just pay for it out of your healthcare resources using your own healthcare card, and that's that. Nobody has to go through the whole business of medical coding. Nobody has to go through 50,000 different yes or no questions. Nobody has to determine the percentage of what the program will pay versus what they're going to ask from you as a copay. All that stuff is gone. And all the expense of it is gone too. So that leaves more money available to pay for actual medical services. It also gives you a lot more latitude in choosing what kinds of medical care, when and where you're going to receive medical care, all of that. It opens up the entire roster of self-governing choices that you can make.
Okay, and you got good timing because it is now exactly 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And there's our 2 hours of questions.
All right, guys. Well, I hope that helped. Buckle up, buttercups.
All right. Catch you all next time. See you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye-bye.
God bless.